All right, guys, how's it going out there today? Rooster here in Tennessee. Been several days since I've done a video, but have been absolutely slammed. So today what we're going to look at is the Longhorn Superior N6, as it's referred to, or the Longhorn. This is the probably the most powerful radio, standalone radio available on the market right now. We'll try to go over the features of it and do a little bit of a performance test on it like we normally do. If you've been looking at one of these and you've been considering it, but you really don't know what you're getting into, maybe this video will help you make a decision, because it is a very expensive radio, but you do get a lot with this radio. So obviously it's a, I guess you won't call it an all mode radio, AM, FM, upper sideband, lower sideband. It does have the fine tune on the clarifier here. It does not have a coarse, just a fine tune only with your RF power right here. We'll get into the controls of it here in a second, but the general gist of this radio is you can run this radio and save yourself from having to own an amplifier. As you can see, it's got a gigantic bracket that holds a fan on the heat sink down here, and basically what this radio does is it's the equivalent of like a one drive and four, or a 4-pill or something like that. It generally do anywhere from 700 to 800, 850 watts, and we'll show you how this one does. Now you can run this as a standalone radio, save yourself from having to buy an amplifier. You get all the features of a Ranger radio, plus, like I said, the added bonus of an amp. So the value in the amp section of this thing is like a $500 amp just built into your radio, so keep that in mind. Very nice radio. Actually, the first one of these I've had in here, I've had the 99 N4s, the N2s, the 2970 N4s, but this radio is actually a little bit more powerful than them. It's got the smooth channel selector, doesn't click, it's real smooth to turn. And we'll just go over everything left to right. It's pretty basic. I'll tell you what the face of it reminds me of is a Galaxy 88. The old style 88 is kind of what the face reminds me of, the layout. So if it looks familiar to you guys, that might be what it's reminding you guys of as well. Volume, squelch, pretty self-explanatory. RF gain right here, mic gain right here, your echo and time, which is it's separate from your talkback, so you can run echo without running talkback. Talkback switch is right here.
Hello, audio check, 1, 2, 1, 2, that'll focus, audio check, 1, 2, audio.
So not a bad talkback circuit, and then you've got your dimmer control here if you did want to back it down. Turn that talkback off. Your mode selector here, AM, upper sideband, lower sideband, and then your fine tune right here, and your RF power right here. Now, you'll look at this radio, you'll say, what the heck, it's got sideband on it, but it doesn't have a 6-digit on the frequency counter. Okay, this is a radio that I would say has sideband, but wasn't really, sideband wasn't the focus of it. It's an AM Powerhouse radio. That's more or less what it's designed for. It will work on sideband. And will talk and does a good job. It actually sounds good. But if that last digit is a concern of yours, just know when they designed this thing, it was more designed for the AM operator, in my opinion, than sideband. So, you've got your buttons up here. You've got your band selector, which for the purpose of this one, just for the test, we will be testing on G band. Or you can go down with it. You don't just have to go one way. It'll go up and down. Noise blanker. And then your meter selection if you want to monitor SWR. Power high and low. Now when you hit the power high and low switch, it actually kills the amp section in this. If I can remember, we'll take a look at it and show you what it does on low power. And then a Roger beep switch there. So really, mainly basic controls on this thing. We're going to test the output of it and try to keep this from turning into a super long video. I do want to be detailed on it and show you guys, go over everything, but don't want this to turn into like a 20-minute video. That way you guys can get the most important parts of it and get out of the way. Now I'm going to dismount the camera here And we're going to take a look at the top. The back does have the Anderson connector here that you guys can plug in for a quick disconnect, and does have the this is your coax connector here. So we've got a jumper screwed into it, but it comes out the back and you screw into it right there. There's a side look, big heat sink, fan. Really nice radio. Super nice radio. Now you don't have to run this as a standalone radio. You think, well, what the heck would I even drive that into? Well, there's some options of amps you can drive this thing into. Something like a 24 pill standard, a 16 pill C box. Things of that nature would be okay for this one. This one's actually probably going to drive in a 16 pill C where it's going. But yeah, you can definitely use this thing to drive into some amps. Now, for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to set the carrier with the amp on at around 100 watts, because if you're running it by itself, that's probably where you want to run it at, about a 100 watt dead key, 100 watt carrier. It's going to sound good there, it's not going to run hot, and it's going to give you plenty of forward swing. So, being an export radio, as you turn the RF power up and down, the average power will vary a little bit. Excuse me, but this one has been modded to where the PEP is going to stay relatively close to the same. It's not going to drop off or go up a whole lot. For the test, we're going to be at 14.7. I'll go ahead and turn the clamp meter on here. We'll monitor that. But yeah, 14.7 is what we're going to be at for the test. We're going to start out on AM. Let's go ahead and set our dead key over here. We've got the 1000 watt slug in, set it for 100 watts. Okay, there's the bottom scale. So we've got a 100 watt dead key. This is AM. We're going to test average power first. Hello. Over 300 average. Now, if you're just curious what it's going to do all the way down, it will fall off. But still going to 200 and something average. Let's go back up to 100 watt dead key here. Now, obviously, if you're going to run this thing into like a 16 pill or something like that, you probably want to run it down to like a 30, 40 watt dead key, maybe even 50 watts, depending on how hard you want to run it. And depending on how your amp is set up. So now we're going to be on PEP. This is going to test peak power. Bottom scale. Check one, check one, check 1, 2, 1, 2, check 1, 2, 3. Audio, 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 check 1, 2, 3. Audio. Just shy of 800 watts PEP. Now again, I'll show you how much current it's drawing. Keep in mind, it will draw more current as the average power comes up. So if we turn this RF power wide open, we'll see more current draw, because our current draw is going to depend more on the amount of average that we're doing. Audio, oh wow, we're drawing more than 40 amps. What do you think about that? Hello, so we saw it jump up to 50 amps there at one time, with about a 24 amp draw on the dead key. So that makes sense with how much we're swinging average. Now, if you guys want to see the difference on AM, if I turn the RF power wide open. Hello. See what I mean? We jumped up to 53 amps. Let's just see what the average power is for kicks. Hello. Yeah, about 350 average from about a 180 watt dead key. So now what I'm going to do is go to sideband, for those that are curious how it does on sideband, how much current it draws on sideband. I'm fully expecting it to draw 60 plus, but we'll see. RF power is wide open, by the way. Hello. Hello. Audio. So jumping up to almost 75 amps there a couple of times. Now, something I want to touch on in this video, maybe I should do a separate video for this, but now there's a lot of people out there that go back and forth. They say you can't use average power to monitor sideband. They say, well, it's not a useful reference of power to monitor sideband. You should only be checking it on PEP. Okay, just for an example, I want to show you guys why I'm doing this video. This is the amount of average power if you believe in using average power as a reference for sideband. Remember, on AM it was showing about 350 watts with the RF power wide open. On sideband, I'm going to show you what it shows here. Hello, 600 watts. Now, let's show you what it does PEP on sideband with the RF power wide open. Hello, audio, 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 audio. 700 watts PEP. Now again, I should probably just do a separate video to discuss this, but basically what I'm getting at, the radio showed 100 watts more PEP on AM. So it showed 800 watts PEP on AM. It showed 700 watts PEP on sideband. On AM, it showed 350 watts average. On sideband, it showed, 600 watts average. Okay? So, is everybody following so far? On AM, we drew 52 amps, okay, with the RF power wide open. On sideband, we drew 75 amps, okay? So the radio is actually doing less PEP power on sideband, but it's drawing almost 25 amps more worth of current. So just keep that in mind. If you're somebody that doesn't believe average power is a reference, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. But keep that in mind when you're driving amplifiers and you wonder why something works so long on AM and then you ran it on sideband and it tore it up. It happens, and like I said, people go back and forth and they'll say, well, you can't, you only should watch PEP for sideband. Can't use an average power meter for sideband, this, that, and the fourth. If that's what you believe, that's fine. I'm just putting the information out there. So as you can see, this radio is doing a ton of average power on sideband. And what does that translate to? It's drawing a ton of current, 75 amps versus 52 amps on AM. Just something to think about. Okay, guys, hopefully I didn't get off the rails there. I try to usually stay on these let's take a look videos, try to stay right on point and just talk about the radio, but that's something that I really couldn't pass up talking about, especially when it pertains to this radio doing such a tremendous amount of power. I like the heck out of this thing. I think it's a great thing that they've come up with these for people that don't want to have to run a bunch of jumpers and, run several different things. Heck, you can run one of these and not even have to run a watt meter in your mobile. And boom, you've probably got a radio that'll talk 35 to 50 miles up and down the road, if you've got a good antenna set up. So, talk skip on it and everything, I'm sure. Or, also, a good option for a base radio. But keep in mind, if you're going to run this thing on sideband, you might as well bite the bullet and buy a 100 amp power supply. Because if you're going to run it on AM, you might get by with a 50 amp power supply. But if you're going to run it on sideband, just bite the bullet and buy a 100 amp and be done with it. That's it, guys. The Longhorn Superior N6. I may get some more of these in. Let me know what you guys think about how this one did. May get some more of them in. They are very expensive, so it's not like I'm going to sit here and have 10 of them sitting on the shelf. Not everybody wants to buy nearly $1,000 radio. I've got a 99N4 that I've been sitting on for 2 months. Surprised nobody's bought it, but yeah, so not everybody wants to buy these, $800 and $1,000 radios, but it's a nice one. Nice looking radio, performs well. I've listened to it on the other end and it sounded really good, so if this is something you're interested in, let me know. Shoot me a text, 423-299-3535, Rooster in Tennessee. Also, check out the website, roostercb.com. And for those wondering, yes, all of our tests are done on a dummy load. So that's it, guys. Longhorn Superior N6, Rooster in Tennessee. See you, bye.